The Urban Age program is a partnership between the London School of Economics and Deutsche Bank's Alfred Herrhausen Society, and over the last 4 years we have been running a series of conferences, not only in the Latin American context, but in fact globally. We have started with New York City, we've done Shanghai, London. In 2006 we have been to Mexico City, to Johannesburg and Berlin. Last year we had our first regional focus with India, a conference then in Mumbai for the whole year of 2007. And this year it's South America, as you already indicated, a conference that is going to happen in Sao Paulo, December this year, and a regional focus on 4 other cities that include Lima in Peru, Colombia with the capital of Bogota, another city in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, and the capital of Argentina, Buenos Aires. We have been doing research on all 5 cities, so also including Sao Paulo, particularly with a focus on social inequality and how urban territory is really featured and expressing that social inequality. Let me come back to that point in a moment. In addition to that, in a way, global regional focus, we have been working on 3 research strands for Sao Paulo specifically. The first one on transport, which is very clear, I think, theme emerging from what local politicians regard as the #1 priority. This is what we found, at least in the context of Sao Paulo. Number 2, the question of security, crime, violence, but very much relating it back again to the physical environment of cities, how the space people live in can either help to mitigate crime or in fact makes it even worse. And the last theme, which is similarly important, it's the relationship between the public and the private, those investing in cities and those really putting forward most of the redevelopment schemes, and to which extent they are informed by a public voice, by a negotiation about the design of the city, and quite frankly the question about how in the future the quality of the built environment, the quality of houses, of towers, of offices, but also public space that is produced by the private sector to a large extent can significantly improve in its outcome. So that is the whole range. In addition, for the first time in our whole conference series, we have commissioned an Urban Age survey, a poll of more than 1,000 people within the metropolitan region of Sao Paulo, addressing those 3 issues and really asking a whole series of questions. What is the public perception on questions of what are the biggest problems in the metropolitan region? What are the big areas for improvement? How do people feel about crime, security, the transport question, and then of course the urban environment and space quality? That effort was particularly interesting because it allowed us to then contrast what the political leadership was thinking top priorities are versus the general public. And just to highlight one issue, I mentioned transport features very high amongst the political leadership. It does still, it is a significant concern for the general public, but not to the same extent. If we ask the general public what are their top 3 concerns in Sao Paulo, first health, second crime, and third the transport issue. Now, more specifically, you asked how this relates to notions of housing, the question of transport, and all those connecting points. I think it's at this point where I want to emphasize that in this project we work with local partners, and that is absolutely crucial. We work with local universities, and most of the work we are going to feature at the summit, which we're going to have in December, is a product of a collaboration between LSE, several local universities and research centers. So it's really what I'm going to tell you now is research that was done by local experts. We have discussed it in length, but it is not a product purely researched and done by LSE here in London, which I think is an important thing to re-emphasize, because obviously giving a local connection, giving local knowledge, a local research center is much better equipped to work on those issues. So what are the key issues within the transport area? And I think that works quite well with your housing question, where of course we recognize that in fact the division of housing, of settlement and transport infrastructure is a very artificial one. The two really belong together, and economists constantly tell us that the effects of transport infrastructure on housing and the effects of housing settlement structures on transport patterns is a very intertwined one, and it really needs to be reflected together. We have done research that highlights this complicated connection, looking at the three most discussed transport scenarios for the future of Sao Paulo, and really discussing how that affects mobility patterns, how that affects inclusionary access, questions about who really profits from what kind of either road building scheme, metro scheme, or bus transport scheme. And I think the big message here is bus rapid transport, as we have seen very successfully installed in Bogota, being the most inclusionary option for having a widespread coverage of public transport access and relatively low cost possibility for people to negotiate urban territory. In addition to that, this is unfortunately not discussed to the extent we feel it should be, is the whole notion of non-motorized transport, walking and cycling. On the question of violence, I think this is an area which is far more complicated. At the moment in Brazil we saw declining crime figures, particularly for the most violent crime, murder rates are going down. It seems that there is no consensus at the moment why that is happening. There are multiple reasons, including changes in the demography, including a whole series of different programs. We were particularly interested in looking at options that go beyond classic policing. And in that context, local researchers have established a whole range of projects in 4 or 5 different areas within Sao Paulo that offer a wonderful alternative, not an alternative, but something that in addition to policing can help to pacify very violent neighborhoods. From the outside, the big lesson here is probably a city like Medellin in Colombia, used to